Okay, I'm currently chair of the English Geodiversity Forum, which I will explain later is a group representing many different interests. And I think that's the key. If you're thinking about having a charter, the key is to get as many people involved as possible. It cannot be a directive from one institution. I also, on that forum, I represent a body called Geoconservation UK, which is a group made up of volunteer groups who look after mainly geological sites within the UK. So they go out and they do maintenance and clearance. So I'm going to talk anyway a little bit about the charter, which we've recently published. And the charter, and I will say, my pictures, my images are nothing like you've seen. That England's geology is clearly not as exciting as Norwegian. So you have it easy. You can see your geodiversity. You can see it all the places. We have to sometimes look a little harder. So anyway, what the charter, which was launched last year, sets out to do is just to explain about why it's important to look after geodiversity. And we used the term geodiversity to be encompassing, and because it matches with biodiversity, a long recognised and understood concept. And within geodiversity, we have geoconservation, geoheritage, and all of those other aspects that come into it. So it's just a wider term. And what we tried to do within the charter was to give examples as to how everybody could get involved in looking after geodiversity, how it might impact on them, and how they could actually do something about it. So it was launched in October 2014 with a briefing in Westminster. We were very lucky to get MPs involved. That's, again, another issue we have in England. I think it's not the same in Scotland. There are smaller, newer parliament in Scotland and more open. In England, it was difficult. But anyway, it was a very successful launch. We had a full room of people, including MPs, members of parliament, ministers of state, etc. And the buzz about it was fantastic. You know, a lot of people went away from that saying, well, what can I do to help? And that was what we wanted. So the answer is that there's plenty people can do, and not to be too negative about what hasn't happened in the past. So it was a wonderful historic occasion, and it was summed up by many as being a real success. And I suppose the message we were trying to get over to people is that England's geodiversity is exciting, possibly not as exciting as some of the pictures I've just seen, but it is exciting. It's world class, and it touches on everything. There's nothing really that you can't bring geodiversity into. So that message we were trying to get across through the charter. And Andrew Sells, who's the chairman of Natural England, summed it up saying, the fact that we're here in Westminster is a very positive sign, and encouraging everyone to work with the forum. Now, the forum is key to having produced the charter, and I'll explain a little bit about that as I go on. But I think it was that sort of bit of just reaching what in England was more difficult, a higher level, in order to try and make things work. Because one of the issues we've had in the past in England is that geodiversity, geoheritage, geoconservation is just not mentioned in many of the documents. There was a white paper that was published at government level 2 or 3 years ago, and the word geodiversity, geo anything, was not in it. Plenty of bio, but no geo. So that was where we came from. And if it's missed out at that level, then in these days of economy, nobody's going to say, let's just put a little bit in about this funny thing called geodiversity. They're going to say, we've got to spend all our money on what's in this bit of paper. So that's why that was one of the things we were trying to address. And of course, I mean, you've had little bits of this. It can be threatened by development, lack of management, and changing processes. Doesn't have to be. That can be a positive benefit. It doesn't have to be that building a tunnel or doing a road cutting destroys the geodiversity. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for getting information that you didn't have before. Many a time I've been out to look at areas, and a new road cutting has thrown all of my theories into total disarray. It's just turned them upside down because I can see more than I could when it was covered by soil. So it's using those things to be an opportunity, and an opportunity for education, science, and for society to be involved. So that's the main reason that we felt that there was needing some action. And so we have some aims within the Charter, and obviously the first one is raising awareness. You can put as much information out as you want, but unless people know it might be of interest, then it will be missed. And for society, just to have a sense of pride in their localities, to encourage a sense of pride in what you have, and to ask people just to consider how to manage that and to pass that on to future generations, and to ensure that geodiversity is not something that's sitting in a box out at the side, but it's integrated with everything else. And also to encourage research. One of the issues I would say we have in the UK is it's very easy to get money to do exotic research in faraway places, but it's actually very difficult to get money to do study at home because it's not seen as exciting, and to also sort of look towards getting resources for that. The image I've got on here at the moment is high force Waterfall, which is a very prominent feature in the north of England, where the water comes down over the wind sill. And the wind sill is one of the major features, particularly in the northeast. Most of the castles were built on it. Hadrian's Wall is built on it. So it's very important. And it's a tourist attraction. There's people there looking at it. It was a tourist attraction in the 1800s, 200 years ago. Turner painted High Force. So it's that link between the heritage and the arts and all of the other things that we try to bring together. Within the Charter, there are little sections. It's divided up. I have brought a few copies with me, so if anyone wants to have a look through. I'm afraid I wasn't able to bring my luggage allowance wouldn't have been great enough for all of you. But we've also only just today sent the final copy to the printers for printing, but I have a few copies with me, and it is available for download at the address here at the bottom. Anyway, within the Charter, there are various sections as to how different groups can become involved, and this is one example here, where working with industry and the business sector, it was possible when a new office block was being built in Sunderland, which is possibly not the most exciting town in England, but it was known that there was a tufa deposit on the wall of the dock, and working with the developers, they built round it. And they built round it so that this tufa deposit could continue to grow, and also to allow people in to see it. So that's a really good aspect of how you can work with people. And actually, the developers have been really good. And it doesn't come out very well, but the tufa is growing at such a rate, it has to be held up now by this prop at the bottom. So it's a very good example of working with developers and industry. And there are action points that developers could use to highlight what they may do themselves within the charter. It also explains how you can work, how volunteer groups and the general public can contribute. And in England, there are about 3,700 what we know as local geological sites. So those are sites designated at county level, not the statutory SSSI's sites of special scientific interest. And clearance and maintenance at these sites is generally done by volunteers. There is no funding centrally available for this. So it's highlighting how people can get involved. One of the things that I've done with a group I work with is do a project called Site Champions, where I've asked people to go and look after a site, to go every year, photograph it, record it, and send the information in, and to highlight if it needs any maintenance. So that's an easy thing that can be done. There is funding available for promoting geodiversity. The Heritage Lottery Fund has money available in the UK. And one of the projects that recently was done was a fabulous project that I was able to go and have a look at, where they had funding. The top bit, I'm actually looking down on it. It's a geological map of Hampshire in the south of England with the rivers on. And there are little pockets within it where they can put fossils from those areas, and they take it out for children to play on. So it's a big mat. It goes on the floor. The children crawl all over it, find the fossils and other things that they could find at those localities. And then, if they're persuasive enough, could take their parents there and have a look. And that's a lovely thing. And also within that was the idea, and I've used this one myself, of having a collector's box like people in the 19th century would have had of all their prized specimens, and they would put them in and take it home. And I've done this with children, with taking just a small box and some little dividers and ask them to put little treasures in each compartment. And that's, again, an easy answer to getting people interested. So a little bit about the English Geodiversity Forum, and I will say again, I think the idea of this forum is what makes the Charter work, because it's a group of people from all across different sectors, different interests. And it has a very simple aim. It's very much like the Charter. It encourages action, it shares good practice, raises awareness, and works towards advocating policy. And it's many, many different organisations. I've got a slide at the end which details them. I've got some others. One of the main organisations involved is Natural England. And that's great, because that's a very good link for us between biodiversity and geodiversity. Because Natural England, probably by most people, are considered to be biodiversity. But they do look after the sites of special scientific interest. They have that role, that remit. And there are about 1,200 of those sites in England, sites of special scientific interest relating to geology. And there are half as much, again, so a total of 1,800 sites, which there are an extra 600, therefore, that ought to be in that sites designated and have statutory protection, and they aren't at the moment. They need to be worked upon. And also there's a geodiversity action plan that Natural England look after as well, so we can highlight good practice easily. And you'll see I put a flower on this one, just to show that not all of my pictures are rocks. This is some of the people within the forum. We do have industry. That, again, is critical. If we want to talk about quarries, use of stone, projects such as the new high-speed rail, things, we need to have representatives from industry. The British Geological Survey, the geoparks, of which there are 2 global geoparks in England, and potential for more. There's one in the planning process at the moment. The museums are represented by the Geological Curators Group, the Geological Society, Geologists Association, the Jurassic Coast World Heritage Site, Natural England, the Natural History Museum. So you can see that just within that list, there's a wide range of different people contributing to the forum. I will say there are some people I think are missing. Missing are representatives from English Heritage who look after the historic buildings. That's not to say they're not interested, it's just that it's not highest on their list. Missing also are the National Trust at the moment, although they do support the Charter. They just don't sit around the table. And the National Trust, who look after many great landscapes and buildings, do have a policy for geodiversity, so they are aware of it. And there are lots of others that are missing, but that's okay, they can join anytime. Anyone is welcome. So I'm going to just show a few links now, just links between where historical, modern day, and some of the organisations work. This year is the 200th anniversary of the first geological map in UK, putting on layers. I'll say in the UK because everybody says we had the first one and things. There's always controversy. But it's 200 years this year since the first geological map to identify layers of rock based on fossils they contained rather than just what they were made of. And this was done by William Smith, who was born in an area just on the northern edge of this map here. So he actually comes from this area. And the British Geological Survey are part of the forum, and they were formed in a long time ago, 1835, and are the people to turn to for maps experience, rather like the survey here, that they have the information and the experience. And the BGS were very helpful in the production of the Charter. They have provided all of the design and other bits behind it. So the British Geological Survey were very much in on the design of the Charter. Another couple of links between people on the forum and the Charter, that within London there's a big rail project happening at the moment, and that's one of the good links that's come out of construction and recording, that they've been able to get a high-resolution model of the Crossrail aspects, that they've used the opportunity to add to recording. There's been people going in to look at it in order to predict where there might be problems. And another body in the forum is the Geological Society. And last year, in October, also in October, they published a list of 100 great geosites. That's actually in the UK, so it includes Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. But one of the 100 top geosites, which was largely chosen by the public, is the Rotunda Museum in Scarborough, which was designed by William Smith, linking back to that first geological map. So there are links, and people can begin to see where it all fits together. So I'm just putting up a few other slides now just to demonstrate some of the aspects of geodiversity. Within England, there are buildings such as Durham Cathedral, which this one here is taken of, built out of local sandstone taken from the river bank adjacent to the cathedral. So it's very local, and you can actually work out how much stone has been removed from the river bank to build the cathedral. Also inside, in the cathedral, they use a marble, a polished limestone for the columns, which comes from not that far away, about 30 miles away, at a quarry called Frostley Marble. And that marble is a well-known marble, and people use it because it's very distinctive. But we also have within England a World Heritage Site for geology, the Jurassic Coast. And I think it's one of the things that we were trying to get over is that all of these sites contribute to the economy. They have economic benefit both to the region and to the local community. Now, at the moment in England, it's money that counts. You know, there are things, ecosystem services, where you're valuing nature. And it's sometimes very difficult to put a value on nature, so we try and highlight how that comes about through the Charter as well. So, positive outcomes we've had so far, and bear in mind it was only launched in October. I highlighted that one of the difficulties we have is just talking to people higher up, getting geodiversity into that higher level. And we've been able to meet more easily with chief scientists, ministers, and to get the message across. We've had engagement with a very influential group, which they are influential at the moment, but they're being disbanded in September. And also, in the UK, there's a general election in May, so this may all change, because with governments, it all changes. But we've had engagement with a group called the Natural Capital Committee, and they are the people putting the money, the numbers in, saying, we get this amount of benefit, therefore it's worth supporting. But we've also been able to just open doors with discussions with many, many wide-ranging groups and start consultations. So I think that's the great benefit of the Charter and the forum at the moment. I'm just putting up a few slides now just to highlight how I can get geodiversity and stories out of things. And I think this is the main thing, is just getting people to see why it's relevant to them. We know why it's relevant because we're involved with it. We know why geoheritage, geoconservation is important. But does everyone? No. But they can easily get it. And I'll just outline some quite sort of simple bits. This image here, I'm standing on a bit of high ground looking over towards some hills. That's as hilly as we get, really, in England. Those are some of the highest ones that we have in England. But those aren't just any old hills. Those are ancient volcanoes. That's the Cheviots. And those volcanoes happened because of the closure of the Iapetus Ocean, the Caledonian orogeny, which you again have represented in Norway. So we can stand there and we can talk about things that were happening 500, 400 million years ago. And the whole idea that there was an ocean, but some people think there still is an ocean between England and Scotland. I think Scotland would prefer that there was. but that, you know, up to 450 million years ago, the two countries weren't joined. But the effects of that orogeny can be seen. Also in that image, I'm standing just in the foreground here on some sandstone, a really prominent sandstone ridge that runs through Northumberland in the north of England. And that sandstone ridge has not only been used as a building stone for all of the local farmsteads, I can guarantee this farm will be built out of it, but also Lindisfarne Priory on Holy Island, but also carved into it are many archaeological drawings, cup and ring marks. So it's been a prominent feature on that landscape for thousands of years. And in this foreground valley, that's been shaped by more recent glaciation, and you can see those features as you go across it. So within that one image, you've got many, many different stories to tell, many different ways people could get involved with that. And of course, you've got the agriculture, the farming, which is different depending on the soils that they're on. There is no farming on the Cheviot volcanics. The soils just won't support it. All that you can really do there is graze sheep. And so there's that big difference there just in that one landscape. A bit further in the northeast, the Durham Coastline, which is formed by limestones out of the Zechstein Sea in the Permian, and a lot of solution cavities due to the evaporites, a lot of collapse due to both the solution out of the dolomites and the evaporites. So many different features there relating to what happens and how buildings can be made. And I will say I did a building stone survey where they'd used this dolomite in their building stones. And I did a survey in a village, and all of the local stones that were used, this was the one that worked the best because they were in an area of high pollution. They overlooked an industrial area, and dolomite is not dissolved by acid pollution. It won't dissolve by it. So this was the best stone that they could have used. The sandstone that they'd brought in for a bit further away, rubbish. Now, where's the geodiversity in this picture? This was a walk in the south of England with a wildlife group. And so naturally they were looking at the plants. I think at the moment they're looking at a caterpillar, a small caterpillar that I pointed out to them. But this area here, although it may not at first instance appear to have much to do with the geoheritage of the area, it's an area called Greenham Common, which 30, 40 years ago was where the Americans kept their nuclear missiles, but it's now been handed back to the communities. And it's actually a plateau. It was a useful airstrip because it is a high plateau on gravels. And the gravels relate to the early deposition from the Quaternary melting of ice further north, and relate to the River Thames gravels and the cutting down of river terraces. And the vegetation on the top, which is acid vegetation, relates to those gravels. If you go further down the slopes, you're not on those gravels. So there is geodiversity. The plateau is only there because of the gravels on the top. They cap it. They've stopped the rock underneath weathering away. And these people can go and look at their acid vegetation so long as they understand that the reason it's there is the gravels. And it's always nice if you can go and put your finger on an unconformity. And this is an example of working with landowners, that this is a disused quarry. It was used just for taking the chalk out to put lime on the soils where they had acid soils. But there is an unconformity here, of about 40 million years between that white bit and the red bit. And I always like unconformities if you can actually see them because the colour shows them up. It's much better if you can go and put your finger on it and say, there's 40 million years missing here. You know, people think, oh, that's interesting. There's a lot more features there, such as that the top of this must have been weathered and then the landowner is very proud of his quarry and he keeps it perfect, which is another good thing. And then bringing into social history, so this is a particular type of gravestone that they have in the Cotswolds in southern England. And it's very extravagant use of stone. And you really wouldn't do that unless you had a lot of stone nearby. And there are quarries within about 3-4 miles of this stone that they're using. So it's a lot of stone to be used just for a gravestone. But that's because it was there. And they're called bale tombs because that area was, at the time that this was put there in the 17th, 18th century, was a wool-producing area. And so it's the bales of wool that it's representing that. But there's also another bit of social history on it, that at the end here you can see there's a skull. And that helps date it because about 1790 in the UK, they stopped putting skulls on gravestones. It was slightly earlier in London, but it took a while to get out further into the countryside. And they stopped using skulls. They thought that wasn't really good. And they went for angels and other things. But, you know, that's all part of a story that you can get from just looking at some of the geodiversity aspects. And my last but one slide. This, again, another bit. It's access for all. And that's what I hope that the Charter is trying to do. It's not only promoting it, but it's getting people out there to want to go and see it. And this was an opening of a footpath in the north of England. And it's 2 miles long, 3 kilometres. And it's flat. It goes along the side of a railway line. So you think, that's not very interesting. It's flat, it's 2 miles, it's along the side of a railway line. The good thing about it is that it's open for everyone. It's a wide track, it's 3 metres wide. You can cycle it, you can take prams, pushchairs. You can, in this group we had people using wheelchairs, we had people who were blind, we had all sorts of people just going along there and getting a feel for the difference. Halfway along it, it changes from being on the tropical swamps of the Carboniferous to the warm, shallow tropical seas of the Permian. That can be described to them. And also, there is a big quarry on the side of this footpath, which they've opened up and put access into, where some amazing fossils have been found in the past. So this 2 mile stretch, which you'd think, that's not interesting, flat, tarmac, has a story it can convey. These are the supporters, just a list there of the supporters of the Charter so far. And you can see what a wide-ranging list we've got. So we have everything from education through to National Trust, etc. And that list hopefully will grow because the more people that are involved and aware of it, the better. And this, the very last people here, Smiths and Sons, are a small local quarry company in one part of England. And they've done a huge amount for preservation of geodiversity. And, you know, it's groups like that that I think should be drawn into it. So I'll stop there and leave you with that one, that geodiversity is not just for a select few, it is for everybody. So thank you.